Cutest little champions, I welcome you all to score 99% in 99 days. Today we are going to start off a new chapter, that is how do organisms reproduce, and under that we are going to concentrate on one particular topic, that is what? Asexual reproduction, which is occurring in both simple organisms as well as in plants. Tomorrow we would be talking about sexual reproduction both in plants and animals. Then day after tomorrow we will be talking about the previous year questions that have come from this topic. On Saturdays are for revision, so we would be revising. That was my hair doing some magic. Okay, so yes, on Saturdays we would be having revision session for the same chapter, and then on Sundays you would be having a mock test which you should definitely appear. Yeah, now today Reproduction has two parts, asexual and sexual. Under asexual, you have asexual reproduction in simple organisms and also in plants. In plants, you call the same term as what? Vegetative propagation. Now, in simple organisms, they have different methods: fission, fragmentation, budding, spore formation, etc., etc. We are going to deal with that. And in vegetative propagation, you have natural way and artificial way. We are going to talk about that as well. This part of the chapter will be dealt tomorrow. Chalo. First question to you, what do you mean by reproduction, my dear children? That's the easiest question, right? What do you mean by reproduction? How can you define it scientifically? So I'll say reproduction is a process which basically helps in the formation of an offspring as in a progeny, which is biologically or genetically similar to me. For example, I cannot give rise to a cub. Right, I cannot give rise to a lion cub. I would be giving rise to a human baby, okay, which is kind of similar. It has hands, legs and head just like me. You get it? So it's basically genetically similar, biologically similar to me. That process is known as reproduction. Over here we have the lioness and the cute little cub as well. So reproduction is a biological process of producing offspring that are biologically or genetically similar to what, children? The parent organism. Now, what is the use of reproduction? Why do you think it is very much important? Without reproduction, things cannot work. So basically, the species that you see over here, that is human species, just think all of us decides not to reproduce. What will happen? Basically, after we are dead, there won't be anyone to continue our species. Right? There won't be anyone to continue our species. So without reproduction, you cannot guarantee that the species would be continued. Human race would be totally extinct from this particular world. So we do not want that. That is why reproduction is kind of important. Now, second thing, reproduction gives rise to variations. Whenever we say reproduction is happening, I am not saying asexual or sexual, any reproduction is happening, basically it can give rise to variations amongst us. And these variations let us survive during unfavorable condition. For example, I have a variation which you do not have. And some unfavorable condition came and I am able to survive because of this variation in my DNA, in my genetic material, whereas you are not able to survive because you do not have that variation in your genetic material. You get it? So variations which are happening because of the process of reproduction, that would help me survive during difficult situation. So that is also one thing. Now, how does variation occur during reproduction? I will be talking about that. Please do not worry. Okay, apart from that, continuity of species, okay, maintenance of the population size, that is also very much important. If the population size is going to get damaged, and obviously the ecosystem has a balance in it, it is also going to get damaged. For example, I am eating a certain type of plant, okay, and there is no reproduction happening in between the plants. So once I am done with those plants, I do not have more plants such that. So I am dependent on those plants, hence I won't be able to survive later on. Such other organisms if there could be totally dependent on those plants, still they also won't be able to survive. So to maintain the equilibrium in the ecosystem, we need to have reproduction. So this is for maintenance of continuity of species, maintenance of the population size, and for creating variations that would lead to what? Evolution. So how are we there? We are results of evolution, my dear children. If variations were not there, probably we would not have been made. So we came from chimpanzees and stuff like that. How? Because they had some variations in them. Right. Now, how does variations occur? That is a question. So, variations occur because of the changes in the DNA. What do you mean by DNA? DNA means, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Deoxy what? Deoxyribo, this is the sugar in which OH is not there, which is why it is known as deoxyribonucleic acid. Nucleic acid, okay, you have RNA, DNA as nucleic acids. So, basically what happens in DNA? This is your DNA, suppose. Your DNA basically are made of certain codes, small codes, okay, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine and stuff like that. And they are kind of paired to each other. They have 2 bonds between them, they have 3 bonds between them. Adenine always pairs with thymine, so it goes like this, okay, and you have different, for example, GC, 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 whatever, how many number you want to make, you can make it. So anyways, there are certain segments in your DNA and you call these segments as what? Gene. I hope you were there in the heredity class, you might be knowing it already. Okay, so anyways, these segments are known as genes. For example, from here to here, whatever codons are there, whatever codes are there, I would call it what? A gene. And now this gene is going to code for something that is known as a protein. What is it known as? It is going to be known as a protein. It is going to code for a protein. Now, proteins are something that is responsible for everything that we have. For example, the color of my eyes, the color of my hair, the color of my skin, each and everything in my body is defined by proteins. Now, proteins can be enzymes also. For example, I want A thing to convert into B. And B is very much important in my body. For this, I need an enzyme. What are enzymes, children? Enzymes are nothing but proteins. So anyway, you need indirectly or directly proteins made in your body. So now, whenever I say reproduction is happening, it is going to bring out certain changes in these genes that you see. If there are certain changes in these genes, obviously they will be making different type of proteins as well. So this is how variations occur. So variations occur due to errors during DNA replication or duplication. Okay, due to errors during DNA replication. What do you mean by DNA replication? So it's not just that we just have one set of DNA. For example, you have a cell, inside the cell you have the nucleus, inside the nucleus you have the DNA. Suppose this cell has to divide into two. Okay, suppose this cell has to divide into two cells. Obviously, this DNA has to be copied. This DNA has to be copied, and when it gets copied, no, there is a thing. It will unwind itself. It will open up itself like this. Suppose here it is AGA, AG. I took this strand, okay, AG. And here I opened it, I got TC. Now there will be a new strand forming over here. With A goes with T, G goes with C, A with T, G with C. Similarly, a new strand over here, T with A, here G, here A and G. So you got one strand, you got another strand, you give this to one cell, you give another to another cell. So this is DNA copying or DNA replication, which we usually have. And basically, during this copying, there are so much chances that errors could be made. And these errors can be good and bad as well. It can be both good and bad. If it is bad, you get diseases like cancer and stuff like that, or so many diseases, genetic diseases. Or else, if it is good, it just sustains, it is helping us sustain in unfavorable situations as well. So, variations occur because of what? Errors during DNA replication or something else. There are so many reasons for variations to occur. Now, the question comes that in which type of reproduction do you think more amount of variation occurs? In sexual or asexual? That is a very big question. Okay, so you have two different modes. One is sexual and the other one is asexual. First one, we'll start off with sexual. What do you mean by sexual? Why it is not moving? Sexual is basically when you have two gametes. One would be a male gamete and the other one would be a female gamete. Okay, gamete means it's just a cell. They both come together and fuse to form something that is known as a zygote, my dear children. Okay, so what happens is that this is a cell I told, this is another cell, so it will have its DNA, it will also have its DNA. We have two different type of DNA coming together in the zygote. So don't you think this zygote that is produced is not exactly similar to both the parents? They have both male and female genetic material. Now they are kind of different because they have both. They are not entirely similar to one parent. They have both of them. So this is one big reason that sexual reproduction has more amount of variations in them, because there is an involvement of fusion of male and female gamete, which you call as what? Fertilization. So there is involvement of two parents over here. Okay, so this is parent 1, this is parent 2. Parent 1 has its own DNA, parent 2 has their own DNA. Okay, during replication, during the copying, it will give its DNA. This parent will also give its DNA. Now you have both the DNA in the zygote. So the first reason for sexual reproduction to have more variation is that because you are having two parents and hence different genetic material. Two parents and hence what? Two different genetic material as well. The second thing thing is that, as I said, whenever you want to, obviously the parent would not be giving their own DNA. They will be making a copy of it and sending it through the help of what? The male gamete, or basically the female gamete, right? So basically when they are copying, there are chances that this particular DNA which is there, it has certain errors, certain changes which was not found in the parent one, which was not apparently found in the parent one. Similarly over here also there can be changes. So during DNA replication also you find changes. DNA replication errors during what? During gamete formation. When gametes are formed, at that point of time, whatever errors are there in DNA replication, that will also bring out variation. So there are two reasons for sexual reproduction to have more variation. Why? Because two parents are involved, so two genetic material is coming together. Second thing, during DNA replication, that is happening during gamete formation, that point also there are copying errors that is being made, which is why there is more amount of variation. But when you talk about asexual reproduction, it refers to type of reproduction in which there is no fusion of gametes, there is no male and female gamete coming together. Here there is an amoeba. This amoeba is going to divide itself into two daughter amoebae. So do you see two parents coming together and basically fusion of gametes there? No. So here there is only one parent. So there is only one parent, that means in its cell, in its nucleus there is genetic material, and this genetic material is given directly to both of the daughter amoebae. But only one thing happens, there is no new genetic material coming over here. There is only one thing that can happen, that is whenever here also the DNA is being copied to send to two different progenies. So DNA replication error can happen. DNA replication error can happen. That is the reason why you have variations over here in asexual reproduction as well. But more amount of variations would be there in always sexual mode of reproduction. Please remember that. So over here only because of DNA replication errors. Cool, works. Okay, this is a very important question. Keep note on that. Fine. Now what? Chalo. Now we are going to talk about different types of asexual mode of reproduction in simple organisms. And the first is fission. The first is fission, which is very much interesting. What happens in fission is that, for example, I am the parent. Okay, I am the parent. This parent is going to divide into two, okay, or basically more. This is known as fission. So it is a mode of asexual reproduction which occurs in unicellular organisms. Okay, obviously you cannot expect me to undergo asexual reproduction. I'm a big complex human being. Okay, I'm a big complex human being who have organ system and everything, which is why we cannot undergo asexual reproduction. Complex organism cannot undergo asexual reproduction. Why? Because our level of complexity is way too much. We have organ system, we have tissue system, we have lots and lots of things in our body, and hence everything has to be coordinated. It cannot work like that. Whereas simple organism, simple unicellular means it is made up of just one cell, such as amoeba, paramecium, all of them, they can clearly undergo asexual mode of reproduction. So it involves division of the parent body into two or more daughter individuals identical to the parent. Why it is known as daughter individuals? Because again this particular thing will divide itself, and mothers are the one who give birth, which is why it's female. Okay, because they are going to give rise to two different individuals, which is why it is known as daughter. Now fission children are of different types. One is binary fission. One is binary fission where the amoeba basically divides into two. Okay, so it is a division of body of an individual into two equal halves, each of which functions as an individual daughter individual. Okay, so many bacteria and protozoa split into two halves through the binary fission process. So you have bacteria, which are unicellular organisms, and you have protozoa. Protozoa again are unicellular organisms only. They are unicellular organisms only. So bacteria, no, they do not have a proper nucleus or membrane bound organelles and stuff like that, which is why you call them prokaryotes. Protozoa and everyone, they are also unicellular, but you call them eukaryotes because they have nucleus and everything. So they are a specific type. Okay, they come under something that is known as protista. They come under kingdom. We have 5 kingdoms. Okay, kingdom protista is there, in which you have protozoa. Kingdom Monera is there, in which you have bacteria and all of them. So basically the simple organisms, they undergo binary fission. Now over here there are different type of binary fission also, depending on what in which scale, which position it is being cut. Okay, so simple binary fission is there, which is also known as irregular binary fission, in which there is no particular angle of cutting down the organism into two. Okay, it can happen through this any side. Anyway, this organism will be dividing into two. This is known as simple binary fission, which is shown by amoeba. Over here you have to make sure the body is dividing into two, not more than that. Okay, if it is going more than that, then it is known as multiple fission. That is something different. So this is simple binary fission, where there is no angle at any scale it can be divided. It is known as irregular binary fission as well. Second thing, you have longitudinal binary fission. Now this picture is really important. Do you know who is this guy? This guy is known as leishmania. Okay, what do you call it? Leishmania. So leishmania, it shows longitudinal binary fission because it makes sure that it is getting cut in this way, in this particular angle and no other angle. Okay, this is longitudinal binary fission. So the plane of fission passes along the longitudinal axis of the organism. The plane of the fission, it is going to pass along the longitudinal axis of the organism. Example, Giglina and leishmania. Okay, leishmania is the one that causes kala azar, which is also known as sleeping sickness. This came in the previous year. They have asked about the order. Over here you see the nucleus is there, the nucleus divided, the nucleus moves away. Okay, the nucleus moves over here. You just had one flagella. This flagella also have increased to 2 in number. Okay, the nucleus also have divided. Now slowly it start dividing like this from bottom level and goes up, and then you have two, what say, leishmania. This is known as longitudinal binary fission. The angle is fixed over here, done by leishmania. Okay, now you have transverse binary fission, where it is going to cut like this from the middle, this angle. What do you call this? This is slipper shaped organism, which is known as paramecium. What do you call, children? You call this as paramecium. Para. Okay, so the plane of binary fission runs along the transverse axis. This axis is known as transverse, okay, axis. This is shown by paramecium, again dividing into just two organisms, not more than that. So you have simple binary fission where there is no angle, then you have longitudinal binary fission where you have leishmania, okay, and then you have transverse where there is paramecium. Now oblique binary fission is also there, where it is cut in a slant way. So this is the organism, this is the normal picture which is given, this is the actual organism. It cuts obliquely, like in half, in a slanted way. So plane of division is oblique. Example is serration. You do not need to remember it, just for your understanding. Okay, so the different types, the major ones are over here: longitudinal, simple and transverse. Okay, going ahead, keep in mind, in binary fission the parent body as a whole forms the reproductive unit and disappears after its division into daughter individuals, right? So the parent which was there, for example an amoeba which is there, it is now getting divided into two daughter amoebae. Do you find the parent organism still being there? No, it has divided itself into two. So therefore, the organisms that undergo binary fission are said to be immortal. So can I call it immortal? Because anyway, its body is being passed on to the daughter. So that is immortal, as the parent does not die and continues to live in the form of the daughter cells. Next thing, you have multiple fission. Okay, multiple fission means I am going to divide my body into multiple organisms. So some unicellular organisms divide into many daughter cells simultaneously by multiple fission, and it's a very important example. The example is of Plasmodium. Plasmodium is a organism, it's a protozoan. Okay, protozoan, remember, unicellular eukaryote. So they are protozoans which causes the disease that is known as malaria. So you say malaria is caused by mosquito? No. Well, mosquito carries this guy inside it, which is why when it bites, we get a stage of it which is going to undergo a lot of things in our body as well. So Plasmodium is the actual culprit. The mosquito is being framed. Now anyways, this multinucleated body divides. So basically what has to happen is, there is a nucleus. Okay, there is a nucleus, children, and the nucleus divides in a multiple manner, okay, rapidly. So you have multiple nucleus within the cyst. You have multiple nucleus within the cyst. Now the cytoplasm, you might ask, where is the cytoplasm, ma'am? Cytoplasm is there. Slowly, before the cyst opens, the nucleus is surrounded by cytoplasm, and then all of them will be released from it. All of them will be released from it. So multiple fission, what happens? The nucleus divides first. Okay, you have enough nucleus, and everything is happening inside a cyst, which is kind of a hard structure. Okay, not very hard, but yes. Okay, it is a protective layer that is being formed, and later on when favorable condition arises, the cyst breaks open and releases the nucleus along with a little amount of cytoplasm around it, and now you have different organisms. So from one organism you are going to give rise to whole different organism. This is known as plasmodium. Okay, this type of fission where many individuals arise from a single parent is known as multiple fission. Now over here, there's a difference given between binary and multiple fission. What do you mean by binary fission? It gives rise to what? 2 daughter individuals. Over here, it gives rise to many daughter individuals. It occurs during favorable conditions. So during favorable condition only, this guy, amoeba and everything can divide itself into 2. This is a normal way of reproduction for them. Whereas multiple fission occurs usually under favorable condition in the case of plasmodium, but amoeba also sometimes undergo multiple fission only when the situations are unfavorable, because when situations are unfavorable they have to make the cyst and everything around them, and then they go ahead with multiple fission. So that is something different. Now nucleus of the parent cell divides only once. So you know the amoeba, the nucleus divide once, that's all, and it is distributed. But over here in multiple fission you saw the nucleus were dividing rapidly, right, continuously. Now cytoplasm divides after nuclear division. So whenever nuclear division happens, along with that the cytoplasm also get divided and you have 2 individuals. Whereas over here cytoplasm does not divide after every nuclear division. So nucleus divides rapidly, that does not mean the cytoplasm will also divide rapidly. Cytoplasm is just around there, and later when time comes it will just surround the nucleus. Now no part of the parent body is left unused. Obviously everything is divided into 2 organisms, but over here some part is being left behind. Now example is amoeba paramecium, that is plasmodium. Please remember plasmodium, very important. Cool? Chalo. So that was about fission. So fission was the first way of how asexual reproduction takes place in simple organism. I hope you remember leishmania, I hope you remember plasmodium, I hope you remember paramecium, which was undergoing transverse binary fission. Okay? And now fragmentation is basically when an organism is going to divide its body. It's going to divide its body. So this is a simple plant. This is the very simplest form of plant. I cannot call it a plant also, but yes, it is a plant actually. And what do you call this? You call this as spirogyra. You call this as spirogyra. The spirogyra fragments that you see now, for example, this is a fragment, this is a fragment. If it divides, this part and this part gets segregated, and now here you get a new thing being formed over here. This is known as fragmentation, where your body is going to divide into fragments and these fragments are going to give rise to different individuals. Okay, so it is a process of breaking up of the body of an organism into 2 or more parts, which is known as fragments, each of which grows into a new individual, my dear children. Fragmentation is quite common in simple multicellular organisms such as algae, fungi and bryophytes. That is chodo. Okay? Fragmentation is commonly observed in green filamentous algae, that is spirogyra. Now this is not unicellular. Okay, it cannot be considered unicellular, they are multicellular only, but yes, that happens in them. Now apart from that, you can see fragmentation in planaria as well. You can see fragmentation in planaria as well. What happens in planaria? You see their body divides into fragments. Each fragment is going to give rise to a new part. Now what do you call this process of giving rise to the new parts? These are the fragments, and the procedure by which they are going to give rise to the new parts, you call this as regeneration. What do you call it? You call this as regeneration. So regeneration is the process of renewal or restoration of any lost part of their body. So simple animals like hydra, planaria can be cut into many number of pieces, and each pieces grows into a complete organism. Now this is also not a unicellular organism, this is a multicellular organism. Still it is undergoing that. So fragmentation I can see in multicellular organisms like spirogyra, or basically like planaria, or basically hydra as well. So hydra also have the same thing, even though I am telling you hydra is not so favorite method, it's not the favorite method of hydra. Hydra is known for something else, it is known as budding, that we are going to study next. Okay, so this is just an example. They also undergo fragmentation. Who all? Spirogyra, who all? Planaria, and then one more guy, that is your hydra. Okay, hydra is for something else, but yeah, they also undergo. Now this process of regenerating the lost part, what do you call this as? You call this as regeneration. Cool, works. Chalo. Now we will see budding, which is actually done by hydra. Now this is hydra, my dear children, and over here you see this is a bud that is being formed. This thing that you see is a bud and will slowly form something like this. So what happens, few multicellular animals like Hydra produce small buds. The bud develops as an outgrowth due to repeated cell division at one specific site. So here the cells are kind of keeping on dividing, which is why a new body is being made. Now these buds develop into tiny individuals, and when fully mature, detach from the parent body and becomes new independent individuals. So once they are like this, fully mature, what do they? They slowly dissociate and get into a separate organism. Now organisms such as Hydra use regenerative cells for reproduction in the process of budding. So these cells that are being used over here, which actually give rise to a whole organisms, what do you call them? Regenerative cells. Okay, what do you call them? Regenerative cells, which has the potential to give rise to the whole organism in general. Cool. So this is budding. Budding is done by Hydra, which is a multicellular organism. Again, this is the famous way of its formation. Apart from that, there is a unicellular organism which does budding, and that is yeast. That is what? Yeast. Now yeast, children, is a fungus. Please remember, yeast is a fungus. Okay, there are multicellular fungus. The only unicellular fungus is this guy. So yeast is there. There is a small bud that is being formed. The bud, basically, they keep on budding, and the thing that is unique about them is that they make a chain of buds. They make a chain of buds and later dissociate. So over here you see the actual one, the yeast. They keep on dividing, which is why you add few yeast and they keep on dividing themselves. Okay, so budding is also observed in yeast. Yeast is a unicellular organism and comes under fungus. Usually fungus are multicellular, but this guy is unicellular. A small protuberance appears on the upper part of the adult cell. This is gradually grows in size. From this newly budded cell, another bud appears at the tip. This process continues 3 to 4 times, resulting in a chain of buds which grows into what? Each cells later on. So budding is there in yeast. Okay, now we'll just recollect because I know you might be confused. Fission is seen in amoeba, paramecium, okay, leishmania, okay, and there is one type of fission which is multiple fission seen in plasmodium. Plasmodium is the one that causes malaria. Okay, please remember plasmodium, modium, okay, Modi ji, you remember Modi, okay, so you can remember that. I hope I'm not, let's say, hurting anyone's sentiments, but yes, that's how you can remember tips. Now next thing, you have, after that you had what, children? Fragmentation. In fragmentation, what do you have? In fragmentation you have example of Spirogyra, and apart from that you have example of, what was that? Planaria, and then Hydra also sometimes. But Hydra usually does something else that is known as budding, and apart from that yeast also does budding. Cool. Now we have the next thing, that is spore formation, very much important. Okay, they ask you to form the diagram of this thing as well. Okay, so over here, what is this? This is the common bread mold that you see on the bread, okay, which you cannot see by your naked eyes, this formation, but this is usually how it looks. So spore formation is commonly found as an asexual mode of reproduction in rhizopus, which is responsible for causing the bread mold. So what exactly happens over here? So this structure that you see, this is known as mycelium. And mycelium, suppose this is the mycelium. Mycelium is formed of lots and lots and lots and lots of what? Hyphae. What is it? Hyphae. So this is also made up of hyphae. This thing that you see over here, this is also made up of hyphae. Oh, this is also made up of hyphae. Everything is made up of hyphae. At the end, you see a knob-like structure. What is this, children? This is known as sporangium. What is it? Sporangium. And inside the sporangium, what do you have, children? You have spores. So when the sporangium breaks open, it gives rise to spores. So usually on the bread, some spores might have landed. These spores, they undergo their own cycle. They start to form this root-like, stem-like, and every structure like this, and then they form sporangium, inside which another spore will be there. Next time, again, they will be opening up, giving out the spores wherever they lie, wherever they have a proper scenario, okay, a proper situation being created, they will again germinate. So these spores which are being released are covered. Okay, please remember, this is the importance of spore formation. The spores which is there, it is kind of covered with a cyst. Okay, they have, or you can just write protective covering is there. They have protective covering, and this protective covering allows them to survive during unfavorable conditions. Got it? So spores are minute, single-celled, thin or thick walled propagules released from parent body from the tiny blob on a stick. This is not something that I made, it's there in your NCERT. Blob on a stick like structure known as sporangium, present at the top of the stalk like structure known as mycelium, which is instead formed of many thread-like structure that is known as hyphae. I told you mycelium is formed of thread-like structure which is known as hyphae. Generally, spores are dispersive in nature and able to withstand unfavorable environmental conditions such as dryness, extreme heat and cold, which is why they are favored. Now, whenever favored condition arises, they will grow themselves up. Cool. So, this is very important. This is rhizopus. Please remember the diagram. Just like a plant, you have to remember. So, plant have stems, roots, and over here just make a blob like balloon sort of structure which is sporangium. And I want to talk about Diksha's scholastic aptitude test, my dear children. So if you are someone who is worried about what you should be doing after your 10th grade, so here we have a scholastic test. So what you can do is, there is a 60 minutes concept based lecture followed by an aptitude test, and depending upon your marks in the aptitude test, you can have a one-on-one counseling with the counselor. They will suggest the best stream that will be good for you. So if you are someone who is interested, you can click on the link that is given in the description box. Works? Chalo. Now, so everything is done, okay, everything that we studied over here is done. So let's go back and put a tick mark over here. What all we covered, let's have a tick mark. Fission is done, fragmentation is done, think of the examples that I taught. Budding is done, spore formation is done. Cool, okay, chalo. Now we are going to talk about plants' vegetative propagation, that is asexual reproduction in the case of plants, my dear children, okay. Okay, so what do you mean by vegetative propagation? What is sexual reproduction in the case of plants? Sexual reproduction is when you have the male gamete, you have the female gamete, they come and fuse, and then you have a whole new flower, and the flower becomes a fruit and things like that. Fruit will have a seed and everything. So I have to tell you about that scenario, otherwise you won't understand. So male gamete in the case, okay, male gamete and the female gamete kind of fuse together to form the zygote, right? In the case of plants, this is how the female reproductive system looks. This is the ovary, and inside this you have the ovule. Inside the ovule you have the female gamete. Cool. What happens? The pollen grains lands on this. Pollen grains will have male gametes. Pollen grain is not the male gamete. Pollen grains will have the male gamete, and the male gamete travels down towards this side and then fuses with the female gamete. Now, when they fuse, they become what? It is going to form a zygote. Now, this structure which is ovule, what will you call this structure now? After this particular thing has, inside this you have the zygote. Inside this you do not have the female gamete now. Inside this you have the zygote. But what do you call this structure? Now you will be calling it a seed. Ovule is the seed, and the outer covering of the ovule, the ovary, it becomes the fruit, my dear children. So the seeds that you are eating, not eating, basically it has the zygote, and the zygote might have transferred into an embryo also, which can give rise to a whole new plant, which is why we put seed in the soil. So whenever nice situation comes, it will germinate. So seed is a result of what? Seed is a result of sexual mode of reproduction. Now, usually this is the case, but over here, if we want to make the plant reproduce, or basically it is giving rise to a whole new plant, without this thing being happening, it is known as vegetative propagation. So vegetative propagation or vegetative reproduction is a growth and development of a plant by asexual means through somatic plant parts like stem, leaf and roots. So you are not involving a flower over here. You are not involving a flower over here, because flower becomes a part of sexual reproduction. Instead of that, you are going to make a new plant with the help of the stem or the leaf or the roots. So these parts, which usually does not give rise to new plant, you call them somatic plant part, or you call them vegetative part. Okay, so here there is no involvement of seeds. There won't be any involvement of seeds. So if you want seedless fruits and everything, it is formed by this guy only. There are two types of vegetative propagation, one is natural and the other one is artificial. First thing, we are going to start off with natural. So over here, please remember, no fruits, no flowers involvement is there. Now, what is the significance of vegetative propagation? Then we will go on talk about natural and artificial. The significance of vegetative propagation is that Even seedless plants, the plants that do not have seeds or the plants does not have viable seeds, okay, they can also reproduce. So banana does not have a viable seed. Banana, the spots that you see, they are seeds, but it cannot be easily be made with the help of the seeds. They do not have viable seeds. So I can make more banana plants with the help of what? With the help of vegetative propagation, where I am going to probably use its roots, okay, if it has the potential to make so. Now plants that produce seeds can also reproduce and give rise to clones. Now I see a very nice plant, a rose flower, okay. Now this flower is really nice. I want more of this. Okay, this particular plant, I want more of this. I can use vegetative propagation, where I am going to take a stem of it, going to attach it with another stem and going to make a new plant out of it. This is vegetative propagation. They are not doing it naturally. Okay, so this can be done. I want to make more clones, that is organisms similar to them. Now this mode of reproduction is kind of faster. Obviously I do not have to wait for pollination to occur and then them to fuse together and things like that. So this becomes obviously faster. So these are the significances of what? Vegetative propagation. Now talking about natural vegetative propagation, you might have seen this particular plant. Have you ever seen this plant? Just give me a second, okay? No. So this, okay, I'll zoom it in and show. So this is a leaf, my dear children. At the edges of the leaf, you see small leaf buds have been formed. Small at the notches, you see small buds have been formed. Okay. This bud, if it falls down, it can give rise to a whole new plant like this. And what do you call this? What do you call this particular plant as? You call this particular plant as bryophyllum. Okay, and at the tips you have small buds. These are adventitious buds. Adventitious. Okay, I have to properly write it. Adventitious. Adventitious buds. Adventitious buds means usual buds that is generally arising, okay, at the stem and everything, that is actually the buds. If buds are arising somewhere else other than the natural position, this is known as adventitious buds. Now these buds, they fall off and now give rise to a whole organism. So you see these cells which are there in the buds have the capacity to give rise to a whole organism, and here no fusion of gametes are taking place. Here just bud is being formed and it is falling off. Do you see any fusion of gametes? No. So this is an example of bryophyllum, very important example. Another thing, you might have seen potato. On the potato, do you see this structures? Do you see these structures? What is this? What is basically this? These are buds. These are again buds. The eye of the potato, the buds. This can give rise to a whole new potato plant. Okay, so how has it come? This is an example of a leaf that is reproducing. This is an example of a leaf that is helping in reproduction. This is an example of a stem. Ma'am, potato is a stem? I'll tell you. So basically just imagine this is a potato plant and over here you have the stem. The stem goes inside. Some of it enlarges like this. Okay, and don't think it does not have roots. So roots are over here. That is a separate thing. But the stem has basically enlarged over here, and this structure that you see is known as a potato. And what do you call this structure as? You also call it as a stem tuber. The stem has enlarged for storage of nutrients and stuff like that, which is why you call it a stem tuber. Now this stem, just like how stems usually have buds and things like that, this stem also have certain buds over here, which would be giving rise to what? A new plant. So I can take the potato, I can plant it, and then I get a new plant. So here I am able to make the plant reproduce with the help of stem. Am I doing anything? This is naturally happening. So this is natural way of vegetative propagation. Apart from that, have you seen this guy? This is known as sweet potato. This is known as sweet potato, my dear children. Same thing is happening over here also in sweet potato. Kind of a little difference is there. That is what, for example, this is the soil. Okay, this is the stem, and this is the root. So certain roots, they enlarge for storage. And this thing that is being formed is known as sweet potato. Sweet potato will also have its own buds. Okay, sweet potato will also have its own buds, and it will give rise to whole new plant as well. So over here, root is going to give rise to a plant. Nowhere you saw fusion of gametes, my dear children. So that is the difference. Cool. Chalo, next thing, artificial vegetative propagation. Now this is done artificially, no one is going to help over here. So here it is done with the help of interference of human beings. We human beings are going to interfere over here. How? First is cutting. In the cutting thing, what do? Basically, you cut a plant, okay, you cut a plant and you make sure you have a branch over here or probably a bud over here. You make sure that there is a bud or a branch over here. Now what do? You take this part and you put it somewhere else. You take this part and you are going to put it somewhere else. So from one plant part, you are giving rise to multiple plant parts. Why? Because it has buds and the buds have the cells to give rise to the whole plant again. You get it? So you cut those regions and you put it. But you also make sure that you are dipping in auxin. You are dipping in a hormone that is known as auxin. Auxin is there for plant, growth and things like that. Okay, so it is very, very helpful. So cutting is a method used for vegetative propagation where a vegetative part of the stem is cut and buried in the soil. So it is cut and being buried in the soil. The part which is used in cutting has the nodes which have the axillary buds which will help in propagation. So over here, if this is the case, I will take a region which has a bud and I'll cut it and I'll put it somewhere else. So this plant will give rise to its whole thing. It also will be having its bud, so it will continue growing. But I'm taking this and I'm putting it elsewhere. So am I not making multiple plants from here, this one particular plant? Yes. Do we involve fusion of gametes over here? No. This is cutting, my dear children, and over here you make sure you're taking parts which has the axillary buds. The buds that is arising at the normal position, okay. Example is rose and sugarcane. Question comes that rose and sugarcane does what type of reproduction? Vegetative propagation, okay, or basically not what type of reproduction, they will ask you what type of vegetative propagation is being spotted over there. So it's cutting. So it is what? Cutting. Next thing is grafting, which is even more interesting. So what do? Probably I want a plant which has two features. It has to be disease resistant, it should not be having diseases. Okay. Second thing, it has to produce good amount of flowers also. So what do? I take, and I do not have both the features in one plant. I take parts from two different plants and I take it together and merge it. So I cannot randomly do that. Okay, they have to have some similarity, then only I can do it. Okay, so basically one part which I am going to put in the other part, the lower part I will be calling it a stalk. And the stalk should be having good roots and everything. It should be having good roots so that support is being maintained. And then I'll putting something on it which is known as sky on. I remember it like that. Sky on is something that you are going to put on it. Now this will be having also the buds and everything, and you will tape it and you will keep it for some time so that the xylem it has its own xylem and phloem. It will also have its own xylem and phloem. Both has to come together. Otherwise, what will happen? The water that is being transported will come over here. It won't be reaching throughout. So basically, I have to make sure the xylem and the phloem. Xylem is there for water transport. Phloem is there for food transport. They have to come together. They have to merge together. So that is very much important. So grafting is an act of placing what? A portion of one plant, bud or scion, into or on a stem or branch of another, such as stalk, in such a way that a union will be formed and the partners will continue to grow what? Together, my dear children. So the part of the combination that provides the root is known as stalk. The added piece is known as the scion. Similarly, you can do it for rose and for other things as well. Okay, now you have something that is known as layering. What is layering? For example, you have jasmine plant. Okay, what happens in jasmine plant? You take a branch of it, you dig it under the soil, but you have to make sure that this branch that you are digging has small axillary buds over here. And what are axillary buds for, children? They are going to give rise to a whole new plant. So this is known as layering. Again, there is our involvement. We have to do this. This is done naturally also. In the case of strawberry, if you have seen, if you keep two pots together, the strawberry slowly goes into the next pot, slowly digs itself into that and forms new strawberry plant. Try doing it at your home, okay? But it will take time, so you have to be patient. So layering is such method of asexual propagation in which a stem is made to produce roots while still attached to the parent plant. Yeah, you have to make sure that it is still attached. Why? Until it makes roots, there should be someone to provide nutrients, right? So there should be a new plant over, there should be already a plant over here which could provide the nutrition, and until and unless it forms the roots, you have to keep it like that. Once you make sure that a new stem and everything is coming over here, you can slowly make a cut over here, and then you have two plants arising from a single parent plant. So the parent plant provides the new plant with water and nutrients while the roots are forming. Remember that as well. If I teach this also, I'm completing it. Can I teach? Okay, now we have something else. Apart from vegetative propagation, we have something that is known as tissue culture. What happens in tissue culture? Basically, in the plants, no, at the tip of the plants, you have certain cells which have the capacity to form the whole new plant. Okay, and these cells are known as meristematic cells. They are magicians. Okay, they are little magicians which can give rise to a whole new plant. So what do? You cut those tips. Okay, you are going to cut those tips, and you call this particular tips as what? Explant. Now slowly you are going to put it in a jar. Okay, you are going to put it in a jar where it is going to divide itself. Now it will slowly divide and form certain tissues like this. Okay, and this tissue is known as callus. It is important. Okay, so you took cells, you put it in a jar that contains agar medium, which will provide nutrition for it to divide continuously. It will divide and form something which is known as a callus. Now you have callus, you need to make roots and you need to make shoot. So what do? Basically you put this callus inside another medium which is known as which would be having what? Rooting hormones. Okay, the hormones that will allow it to form roots. So you're going to put it there. Okay, and you are going to also help in what? You are also going to put it in a hormone which would be helping in shoot formation. Usually it's just one hormone, that is auxin. You put the callus in a medium that has auxin. Slowly the callus would be making roots and it also would be making shoot. Later on, obviously it cannot grow there. That will be really sad of it, right? So what do? You take this callus and then you put it in a pot. It will slowly grow there. So over here you have taken tissue, my dear children. A group of cells you have taken from the tip, which is why it is known as tissue culture. With the help of just those tissues, you are making a whole new plant. So this is what you mean by tissue culture. So this technique of developing new plants from a cell or a tissue in a nutrient medium under aseptic condition, obviously you have to make sure there is no pathogens, nothing, it's contamination free. Okay, now the cells or tissue is placed in a nutrient medium where it forms a mass of cells. What do you call it? Callus. This callus is then transferred to another nutrient medium where it differentiates and forms a new plant. Differentiates as in, now I know my function. So whenever, for example, you are in 10th, after that you will choose something, CS or whatever you like. Now you are differentiated, you have a proper function, you have a goal determined in your head. Similarly, it also will know that it has to form root or a shoot. That is what you mean. So that is tissue culture. And with this, we are basically ending the session. And if you're someone who is basically confused about what you should be choosing after 10th, there is Diksha Scholastic Aptitude Test, where what you can do is, there is a 60-minute concept-based lecture, followed by an aptitude test. Depending upon the marks in the aptitude test, there will be a counseling session, and depending upon your marks, they will be telling you what course is the best for you. So if you're someone who is interested in that, there is a link given in the description box. You can click on that. And if you're someone who liked the video, do not forget to leave a comment, and if you have any doubts, put it down there. And I wish you all the best. Bye bye. Take care.